Hi, and welcome to Unleashed, the podcast about the people, the projects, and the culture of Big Red Dog. Each episode, we sit down with a team member to discuss what they're doing on a daily basis to chase their passions, help our clients become successful, and make the engineering business cool. I'm Sean Terrier-Smith, your co-host, along with Kelly Dakin. Kelly, how are you doing today?
Doing awesome, Sean. Good to see you, man. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. I'm excited to start this show. We're in November. It's a little chilly out in Texas, right around the Thanksgiving holidays. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving holiday and we're about to get started. Let's go. Hi, and welcome back to another episode. We're here in the Big Red Dog studios today with Dane Edwards from our Austin office. Dane is one of our project designers here in the Austin office, and we're excited to talk to him. Dane, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Excited to be on here.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Dane, you've been here for a fair amount of time. I mean, the company itself is fairly young. I mean, we're only 9 years young, and you definitely would qualify, I would imagine, as probably one of the more veterans among the team. You said you've been here for 4 years or so. Is that correct?
That's right. It's been a challenge and pretty exciting time for me.
Yeah, I guess, you've got an opportunity to see the company grow from this entrepreneurial stage all the way to, a kind of a breakout into small to mid-sized firm stage. So how did that kind of look to you as a designer, as somebody on the production team, seeing the company grow from this small entrepreneurial type organization to a mid-sized firm over the last few years?
When it first started, when I came on, it was just a civil discipline. And now, obviously we've added other disciplines. So there's a lot more, resources to draw from. We're no longer sort of operating in a civil bubble. We have MEP and traffic resources that we can just walk down the hallway to get to, as well as structural. So that's been big for everyone, I think. It's definitely a benefit for what we do as civil engineers to sort of know what MEP does in structural and traffic. I think the company's done a really great job going from a smaller size to a medium size, as you mentioned, and retaining its sort of, smaller feel. It's not stuffy or anything like that. And HR's done a really great job of just sort of holding on to that intimacy of the company and making you feel welcomed and encouraging everyone to grow. So
yeah, I agree. And Dane, I think we started right around the same time. You were here right before I got here. But as we continue to open new offices geographically, I think Dallas opened after we started, and then Sugar Land opened after we started. I think the point is to always maintain that culture of how Big Red Dog was when you first started and when I first started, and it's good to see that we're still holding on to that.
Right.
So you came to the company about 4 years ago. Were you coming here straight from school, from another company? Were there things that really tipped you off about Big Red Dog, the culture, the brand, or were there folks here that you really wanted to join the team with? So what drew you originally to the team, I guess, is what I'm curious to know.
So Marissa Lucero, actually in the Houston office, was working at Big Red Dog. And she is a friend of mine, and also a sister of my good friend Julio Lucero, and sort of had a shoe in with her. But I guess I should backtrack a little bit. I came from the healthcare environment. I was working at Brackenridge Hospital in the intermediate care facility there, and was interested in design and engineering, and took some courses. And it was sort of a whirlwind of landing at Big Red Dog with an internship. That's kind of where my journey began here at Big Red Dog.
Cool. Did you have anything in your background that lent itself towards engineering and design? Was there something that was very, relevant to your experience? Was it just something that kind of popped up and, you became immediately curious about or interested in?
For me, it was always just drawing, I think. As a kid, I was always kind of a gifted illustrator and easy to sort of make that transition with those sort of visual art skills to design work. And I found in my coursework at ACC that, it was sort of came naturally to me to have the ability to imagine things in your mind's eye that appear in 2D on a piece of paper. So I sort of found a natural, gift at that perspective of engineering, and wanted to explore that, and it's, I think, gone pretty well so far.
That's really awesome. I think with your artistic background, when you joined an engineering company in like a technical drafter role, were people surprised about that? Because a lot of times people don't kind of connect the art side with the technical. Right. What you're really doing is illustrating, complex ideas and how to build things. Could you maybe just talk about how that's related? Yeah, sure.
I think it's probably easiest to see in a lot of the modeling programs that we use, like Civil 3D or Revit. Having the ability to see things in three-dimensional space and how they interact with, in our case, topographic features, or an MEP or structurals case, conduits or whatnot. Anything that's happening in the building goes a long way. Seeing it on paper and sort of interpreting all of those realities through math or something in a 2D sort of space is, I think, challenging for anybody. But having that that background in art is, I think, helpful for anyone. I think Walker at one point, Walker's one of our designers here, senior designers, mentioned that somebody had come in for an internship and had brought like a bunch of sketches. But I think they got cold feet at the last minute because they realized they didn't have any real engineering or architecture type experience, and ended up leaving the interview prematurely. But Walker wished he had stayed because, he recognizes that those sorts of skills are really valuable, because, at the end of the day, we are designing, three-dimensional things that, are sometimes difficult to comprehend just on paper. So
that's interesting. I hadn't heard that story before about Walker, but for those of you listening, you can look back in our archives. We did talk to Walker on one of our previous episodes, so be sure to check that out.
Yeah, I think an artistic background, plays a significant role in what we do. I think the fact that to be skilled in artistic endeavors, it often takes a command of spatial awareness and understanding perspective, and to be an effective engineer and designer, to articulate the design on paper to a contractor, to a developer, to another designer, or another design professional. It takes a great deal of awareness of spatial awareness and how things interact in both two-dimensional and three-dimensional space. So that's really neat that we've identified that in some of our candidates, and often seek that out. I know, for example, one thing that I often look for on a resume, especially when it comes to engineering level folks, is food service backgrounds. I think that plays a huge role in terms of how you communicate. Somebody who's bartended, who's been a server or whatnot, that is something that's unique, that you often cannot uniquely find in engineering curriculums. You definitely aren't going to find it in the engineering curriculum, but you're not going to find it in a typical internship, because that power of communication internally and externally is something that's an X factor for any employee. So, having that artistic background, I think, gives you the X factor, when it comes to being an effective designer. So that's really cool that you come from that non-traditional kind of background, I suppose.
Sure.
So in healthcare, you were just working strictly in healthcare as a healthcare professional. Is that what you were doing previously?
Yeah. So I was an EMT, and I worked in intermediate care. I have a windy past. It's been a windy road to get here.
I joke that Dane's the most interesting man in Big Red Dog because he's done so many things and has so many talents.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is what it is. So.
No, that pays dividends. I mean, to have an EMT background, I mean, to me, that if I saw that on a candidate's resume, that would stand out incredibly, because I know right off the bat that you have this ability to think on your feet. You know how to navigate tricky and stressful and very important situations, without having to consider the options over and over and over again. You act decisively in the midst of a stressful environment. So to have an EMT certification or even experience on your resume alone, I think that's something that would be effective in any industry, not just in our industry, of course. So I think that seeing that on a resume is really special. I think at the end of the day, if you're navigating a bunch of careers or whatever, somebody's just trying to find out what they're trying to get, end up at. It's not a negative in my opinion, at least. But
right.
That's pretty cool that you got that background to have those things and come into this environment, and especially a place like Big Red Dog that kind of fosters that level of diversity amongst its candidates and team members. I think that it seems that you found a home here, at least when you started. So switching gears to your day-to-day, do you work primarily on commercial projects, residential projects, and you're a civil designer? What sort of software do you use each day? I guess you came in working on Civil 3D, but what sort of stuff do you work on each day for the team?
Most of my projects are commercial projects. We have a lot of office, hospital, freestanding ED, warehouse type stuff, but we also have some multifamily projects. We definitely use Civil 3D every day, every person on the team, as well as just basic AutoCAD. There's HEC-RAS, HEC-HMS. It's more of an engineering endeavor. But I would say, Civil 3D is very heavy in what we do.
Had you used AutoCAD prior to coming to Big Red Dog?
I had a little bit in high school. I took a CAD course. Mr. Brown was my CAD instructor, if you're out there.
Shout out to Mr. Brown.
Shout out.
What's up?
Thanks for tolerating me, Mr. Brown. I hope you'd be proud of me. So, I took a couple years of AutoCAD in high school, which was really, thinking back, was a really cool thing that my school offered.
Yeah, I think that today's generation of employees and candidates, we tend to pick up software really fast. So if you don't have like that background in whatever software is being used, I think it's something that we're around growing up through school and through college. We're just surrounded by multiple different versions of software and things coming out all the time that we've just grown accustomed to learning things quickly. So the fact that even if you didn't have Civil 3D experience coming in, it seems that you picked it up pretty quickly, and that wasn't necessarily a weakness by any measure. So I guess when you got into CAD originally, was it something that resonated with you going back to your artistic endeavors? Did you do drawings or paintings? What sort of mediums, I guess, did you work with previously in your artistic efforts?
So a lot of what I've done is self-trained. So it's a lot of, when the teacher's lecturing, I'm doodling sort of type skills that I developed in all the way from elementary to high school. So a lot of like pen and ink stuff, sketching, cartooning, some watercolors and charcoal. But definitely my most experience is with pen and pencil illustration and sketching.
Cool. So what originally drew you to Austin? I think just before the show you mentioned you were from Houston.
Yeah.
So shout out to Houston. But I think you imagine you went to Austin or stayed in Austin because of school or for some other purpose.
Yeah. So I came to Austin just right out of high school. I went to school at the University of Texas. I got a couple of degrees. I double majored in English and anthropology. And I stuck around. Really, I guess I graduated in 2008. There wasn't a lot of jobs, right? Especially for an English and anthropology major. Yeah. But after school, I got a job in archaeology with a company here in town, and managed to find some pretty affordable housing with a couple of friends, and that was a good space for me at that time in my life. And so I kind of rode that train for a few years and made Austin a home for myself, and I've been here ever since.
Well, it's a great city. We're glad you're here, Dane.
Yeah.
I want to hear about this archaeology job, though.
Me too.
Oh, when I think of archaeology, I think of the pyramids in Egypt, and what kind of things were you
running
doing?
From gigantic boulders,
exactly,
and ancient traps that have been set for you. So really what it was in my experience, it wasn't any of that, by the way.
You could just tell us that it was, and then
just make it
just
up.
won't know. Yeah.
No, it was great. It was a really awesome experience that I got to have. I worked in cultural resource management is what it's called. It's there's also natural resource management, which probably more people are familiar with. Includes biologists and ecologists conducting environmental surveys. But we were part of those teams, and a lot of the work that we did was in Texas and Louisiana, primarily as part of, like I mentioned, environmental survey groups. Basically, what we would do is be assigned a very large tract, which a lot of times there was maybe some overhead power lines, like a transit line or some pipeline or something like that. And we would have to verify that there weren't significant archaeological sites along the proposed corridor. We'd also do some inventory in state parks throughout Texas, and some, known sites that, for example, maybe a bridge was going in here, and, before any construction activities occurred, we wanted to make sure that we documented everything, to the greatest extent and protected the site for, any future sort of archaeological or historic endeavors. And also worked at TARL, Texas Archaeological Research Laboratory, just doing some inventory of specimens and a little bit of computer work, just sort of like reconstructing archaeological sites that had been conducted in the 70s, that were just on pen and paper, and sort of transferring that to, design program that was, a little more up to date. Yeah. So the paper wouldn't, disintegrate in 20 years. We lose everything. So it was great. A lot of hiking, a lot of natural beauty. It was a really good experience.
Cool. And at the same time, it sounds like you were exposed to a lot of the things that we're dealing with today, development and infrastructure.
Oddly enough, they're kind of related. Yeah. Just a very different part of the process.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of intersection that actually with what we do. There's a interesting story developing here in the Houston region. There's a school being built in Fort Bend, just on the southwest side of town. They encountered a mass grave, unmarked graves for former slaves that were a part of the sugar fields that were down there, and they wanted to expand this or build a brand new school there right at that point, and they had to halt construction for almost 6 months or more, I think. Now they're figuring out how to relocate, et cetera, build a memorial and all that, but an accurate cultural inventory plays a huge role in whether or not, this very, very expensive school that serves a population of, a growing population in the metropolitan area of Houston, starts or, begins the school year on time. And now it isn't, of course, but it's just remarkable how big of an impact that stuff kind of has if it's not done correctly or if you're not paying enough attention to it. So that's an interesting intersection, I think, with what you're doing now to see perhaps how that plays a role. That's really interesting. I mean, I guess, everybody, we think about Indiana Jones or something, but, it's still, very real, tangible effect on our day-to-day lives, even if it is a study of the past or artifacts of the past, that is. So is there anything that you haven't done, I suppose, at that point?
No, I've done everything. This is the last thing.
So that's really cool. I think having that level of that diverse background of study, of experience plays a huge role in one's individual enjoyment of what they do for work. So I'm glad that we have brought that out and sought that out, I guess, in our teams. Because I know we have a healthy amount of interesting folks at pretty much every office. So switching gears a bit, obviously you have this diverse background. I presume that you probably have some hobbies of your own. Do you do things in Austin area or, travel and whatnot that really interest you, things that you're kind of constantly chasing outside of work?
A few, certainly. Hiking is enjoyable to me. I love being outdoors and just being in natural beauty. I think Austin has done a really great job as a city to sort of preserve the natural beauty that we have with all the hiking trails and whatnot. So that's something I can do pretty much anytime I want to do, which is great. Other things, I like organized sports. I was on a softball team, play basketball. I also like photography. and traveling, but it's hard to travel, isn't it? It's just never enough time. But we're actually my wife and I are going to Europe next year. So we're hoping to explore a bit of France and the London area. And aside from that, I have a motorcycle, which I really enjoy. It's very therapeutic. I think everyone should ride motorcycles. It's just a great way to get around. Obviously, there's some safety concerns with that, but
it's great riding weather right now, though.
It's excellent riding weather. Hunting, fishing. There's plenty of things to get my mind going. Gardening, yard work. Yeah.
You're a musician. I'm telling you guys, this is the most interesting man in the Big Red Dog.
And then of course Netflix, you can catch up on all the great movies. Everything that's ever been filmed is available on your television. So
what a time to be alive.
There's no more blockbusters, there's no excuse not to watch every movie. So
it sounds like you belong in Austin, all that stuff just within hand's reach.
Right.
The hiking, the riding your motorcycle around, music, etc.
Yeah.
I will disagree with you on the motorcycle thing, though. They scared me to death. I'm not scared of many things, but riding on a motorcycle, I don't trust other riders to give me a safe space. So
I hear you.
And that's coming from somebody who was in the military. I still would prefer being in a combat zone rather than being on a motorcycle. Just level of security there. But nonetheless, I do hear it's a great experience. Maybe I will try it someday. Maybe I'll face my fears. But
I forgot to mention one thing. Cycling. I used to be a very big cyclist. I don't mean to take up too much time about my personal life here, but I have to mention it would be a mistake for me not to. That I rode my bicycle from Austin to Anchorage, Alaska, when I was at UT as part of the Texas 4000 for Cancer. It's a charity research group, which I have to give a shout out to. It's a great organization if you're looking to donate to a charity.
Just Anchorage, not Russia, the moon,
just Anchorage. We didn't go to Nome.
That is amazing. That's an awesome.
Looking back, I have no idea how I did that. I need to lose a good amount of weight at this point in my life.
Young and resilient, right?
Young and resilient. Yep.
Awesome. I was about to suggest or see if you had ridden the MS-150, and then you come out here and just I've ridden 50 MS-150s in one trip or whatever. I'm like, okay, that's a little bit farther.
It's funny. Today, Thomas, who's our team lead, shout out to Thomas. He made the point that I have ridden my bicycle further than I've ever driven my car, which I thought was a good point.
That's incredible. I didn't even realize there was a ride that goes all the way up to Anchorage from anywhere, I guess. I just didn't think that was even physically possible. Isn't there places that can't even be accessed by car up there? Or
well, I mean, we managed to do it, so
yeah. So maybe it's just certain parts of.
I think
Alaska
it's certain parts.
Aren't.
Yeah. I think large
that's
swaths.
What I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. I'm impressed. That's probably, you've ridden your bike more than I've probably, have walked probably at this point. Who knows? But that's a hell of a feat for sure. So I guess, you're like I said, you're just kind of well suited for the Austin region. I mean, the natural landscape around there and all this ability to exercise all of your hobbies in addition to, your past experiences lend itself to that. It's just it's an incredible opportunity to have people like you on the team that, bring us a kind of a wealth of color and context and texture to our culture, and get to have that, level of complexity and conversations between everybody. So, it's tremendous.
Thanks.
So kind of going into our last segment here, we asked these same questions of everybody at the end, just to kind of get a bigger picture of our mission and everybody's, what they would like to do in their own time and whatnot. So the first of these three questions is, if you could add a book to the Big Red Dog library, if there was a virtual library that everybody could pull the book from and you could recommend it, what book would that be and why?
This is a hard one. But I think maybe I just recently read this on a trip to Yellowstone. It's called My First Summer in the Sierras by John Muir. It's a pretty short read, but it's just a great escape for the mind to kind of go into the turn of the century in Yosemite National Park. And John Muir's an excellent writer. It's a lot of poetry, and it's just a very beautiful read. So
nice. So that was your pump me up kind of reading on the way there?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. I'm gonna get out and see some things.
Yes.
And get your mind right. So it was good.
That's awesome. Yeah, you could add a little bit of humanities to the library, not just a bunch of technical books and stuff. So.
Gotta soften these engineers up a little bit.
Balance it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Second of all, a second question is, I think you probably have multiple answers you'd like to pursue with this one, but if Big Red Dog didn't exist, for example, and if you couldn't do what you do now for your career, what would you do to chase your passions?
It's a hard one too. I think maybe I would give photography a shot. I follow some really cool photographers on Instagram, and they're just the places they go and the things they see are incredible. So just having the opportunity to see the world and share it with others, I think would be really rewarding.
Yeah, I would love to see what your perspective brings to that. I feel like this is probably the third or fourth person that's kind of resulted in almost an Instagram influencer type passion. There's a couple of folks have already mentioned things that want to travel or things like that. Maybe I should continue to suggest that they become Instagram influencers.
Right.
Maybe it's just the type of people that we have that wants to explore the world and show it to everybody. So that's cool. That's really interesting. The last question kind of touches on our mission statement. What does it mean to you to make the engineering business cool?
I think working at Big Red Dog has, made it cool for me. It's defined that. It's just a great place to be. It's, I came in with very limited experience, and in 4 years, I'm the lead designer on some big projects, and I've gathered a skill set, not because I'm incredibly gifted at what I do, but because I've had mentors and people to help me get there. And to get there in a way that was rewarding and fun. And, I think all that stuff, I think that, having the open space and just giving opportunities to people to really shine is what makes it cool.
Oh, awesome answer. I appreciate that. And coming from somebody who's been with the firm for a while, I think you give a great deal of context. But Dane, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us today. You have a really interesting insight, and I think that the level of perspective you have, not just for the company, but in general, your experience in personal life, gives a great deal of color to the company and to the culture that we have here. So I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Dane.
Well, that does it for another episode of Unleashed. As always, you can find us online at bigreddog.com/podcast, where you can find our show notes. You can find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or any storefront that carries your podcasts. And if you could leave us a review and rating in one of those storefronts, we'd really appreciate it.
And we are not Instagram influencers here at Big Red Dog in the marketing department, but do check us out. We recently passed 1,000 followers, and we try to share a little bit of that culture that Dane was talking about. We show some of our people, some of our projects, and some of the things that happen in our offices every day.
Yeah, I know I look at it because that gives me some insight to what everybody else is doing in the other offices, so I can get some ideas for the Houston office. So I appreciate that. Well, that does it for us. Until next time, take care for now.